My name is DrChinweEgbunike-Umegbolu. I'm from the University of Brighton, and the title of my research paper is Access to Justice for People with Disability in Nigeria, Therapeutic Daycare Center as a Case Study, TDCC. Thank you once for giving me this opportunity to present this work. Issue at stake. Access to justice through the court system for non-disabled persons is trampled upon every day in Nigeria. One can then imagine the plight of the disabled persons, most of whom live in abject poverty and constant discrimination from their respective families, religious congregation, educational sectors, and the ineffectiveness of the government policies. Against this backdrop, this study presents the findings of the analysis of this discrimination and injustice stemming from basic amenities to prevailing cultural vices, religious practices, and lack of commitment on the part of the government to attend and implement the needs of the disabled persons, which are hindrances to access to justice. Methodology and method utilized for this research. I used the Therapeutic Daycare Center as a case study. I interviewed the staff of the TDCC, the staff work, and the directors and the manager. They work with the disabled persons and non-disabled persons, and as well as I utilize the primary and secondary data for this research. So the importance of an interview is to provide credible research and gain an in-depth understanding of the prevailing issues that contribute or hinder access to justice for disabled persons. The opinion of the participants were gathered via Zoom and then WhatsApp calls. The respondents were then grouped under the 4 categories: the directoress 1, the manager 1, the head teacher 1, and the teachers consist of 2 participants. All respondents were from the TDCC Enugu. And the interview was, yes, I think I've mentioned that it was a semi-structured interview. So the concept of access to justice and accessibility. Professor Onyema defined access to justice as an unequivocal right of the common man to access the courts without obstructions or any impediments. In other words, the fundamental nature of the process of access to justice is undoubtedly hinged on the availability of its access to all, hinged on the availability of its access to all. The above viewpoint is backed by Section 36(1) of the 1999 Constitution, that the common man is entitled to be treated justly and get fitting remedy from the courts, which is within the ambit of the law and within his constitutional right as a citizen of Nigeria On the other hand, Cambridge Dictionary defined accessibility as the fact of being able to be reached or obtained easily. Flowing from the above, it is regrettable to note that the court premises in Lagos State nor in Enugu State observes or implements that provision for the interest of the disabled persons. In the same vein, accessibility or availability in this context is making sure that all persons can wholly and successfully dialogue or talk with everyone involved in the court or during the ADR process without accessibility impediment. However, the courts in Lagos and Enugu, I noticed there were no post barriers on gutters, no lifts, no ramps, or handrails to aid the disabled persons in the courts. No instructions or guidelines for the hearing impaired, no recorders, no sign language interpreters, and no provision for the blind either. I also noticed that the offices and toilets are too small, even if the road is filled with stones. So even if they can afford a wheelchair, the road is unmotorable, hence cannot be used by these disabled persons. Or one can argue that the relatives can assist them to assess the courts, but it's about equality, their constitutional right and inclusion, which they are entitled to, and which is guaranteed under Section 36(1) of the 1999 99 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It's about proper access in the real sense of it, which Maslow pointed out as an essential element a human being needs. Do Section 46, 4B, 1I and II, yes, made provisions to cover indigent citizens. However, most disabled persons live in abject poverty and cannot access these funds. They can't access the courts and basic services like engaging a lawyer or getting the financial aid is far-fetched. It is essential to point out, Lauren Moses pointed out that more than 1 million disabled people in Nigeria live in Nigeria, and yet it was in 2017 that they had proper access to vote in an accessible center, meaning those before then they couldn't vote because they cannot access the voting centers. So, and it seems from the above viewpoint that access to justice is far eroding the disabled persons in Nigeria and non-disabled persons in Nigeria. But this discourse will, however, focus on the disabled persons. The need for access to justice for disabled persons should be paramount interest to all and sundry, especially the government and the judiciary, because they are legitimate citizens of the country. Apart from the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Section 36 has provided for the equal rights and protection of these citizens. Recent cases pointed out, I need to go back. Recent cases has pointed out by Ebuka that the predicament of disabled persons like Femi, who was denied crutches or any other mobility aid, and Tahaba, who has undiagnosed psychosocial disability, though does not suffer from physical disability, but cannot recall key details of his case or when last he met his lawyers. or when last he met his lawyers. Thus, this goes a long way to establish that disabled persons suffer structural discrimination and marginalization in Nigeria. However, the Inclusive Friends initiatives and the initiatives of the Association of Lawyers with Disabilities in Nigeria have begun to advocate and sensitize these issues. Conversely, the President of the Republic of Nigeria, President Buhari, signed into law Discrimination Against Persons with Disabilities Prohibition Act 2018, following the 9 years of advocacy by disabled rights activists. However, DrChinweEgbunike provided a hand account of the pain some parents of the disabled persons go through an interview. One of the parents, okay, so one of the parents pointed out that their children were unloved, discriminated, and their families stigmatized, that there seemed to be an invisible iron curtain that cuts our children with special needs off from the rest of the world. Therapeutic Daycare Center, TDCC, as a case study. So this innovative center is one of its kind in Nigeria. It has it was established for over 40 years old, and it's run by Mrs. Hildegard Ebibo. She's a citizen of Germany. She had also trained as a speech therapy in Germany, and worked in Germany for 5 years with children with disabilities, or with persons with disabilities. The issues and challenges raised during this during the interview was number one, the need to practice both integration and inclusion. The school, they practice both integration and inclusion, which is a standard practice for equal opportunity as stipulated in 1999 Constitution. Educational amenities now provided for disabled persons. They also raised this as one of the challenges. Investing in the education of the disabled as a waste of time. This was also raised. The difficulty faced by both disabled and non-disabled to secure a job in Nigeria. And a right to religion was also pointed out as challenges they face. And finally, cultural vices. These issues or challenges collaborate with the reviewed literature that the disabled persons suffer from structural discrimination, marginalization, and seclusion, which is tantamount to no access to justice and accessibility. Because they have no access to education, employment, basic amenities, and religion. What else do they have access to? And most especially the cultural vices, that one of the teachers pointed out that the parents feel that they sometimes put their children keep them back home, and some other events that has pointed out that cultural vice is still prevailing, like the BBC report that was reported a recent case where these children are being held in locked up. And from my community as well, I've also witnessed this cultural vices. So in conclusion, this work has been able to reveal that there is discrimination because of the legal barriers posed by non-accessibility depicted herein. Though the remote working and socialization introduced by COVID-19 may seem to have rectified or reduced this issue, however, what happens when COVID-19 goes away? So I hereby call upon the Nigerian Bar Association and the prominent organizations in Nigeria to lend their voices and support for this infrastructure like the TDCC that observes standard practice, for more of these schools to be provided and the needs of these special needs to be recognized and implemented in a bid to enhance access to justice for the disabled in Nigeria. Thank you so much. Do not have enough time to explain the analysis, but if there is any questions, I'll be very happy to answer them. Thank you once more.